And greetings, saints of the Most High. God Rod Thomas coming at you from the DFW Metroplex area on this preparation day heading into our weekly day of rest in Yeshua Messiah. Hoping, trusting, and praying that this installment of the Messianic Torah Observer finds you, your families, and fellowships well and blessed. Well, as I'm recording and publishing this installment of TMTO, it is the 15th day of the second month of Abba Yah's biblical calendar year. Our Jewish brethren refer to this second month as the month of Iyar. At any rate, this all translates to the Roman calendar date of Friday, May 24, 2024. It is the 27th day of our 50-day counting of the Omer that will take us to Shavuot, also known as Pentecost. On June 16th will be a Sunday, 2024. Again, Shavuot this year for us is going to be on Sunday, June 16, 2024. It is a holy day. It is one of the 7 mandated feasts of Yehovah, our Elohim. So mark it on your calendars, beloved. And we'll get more into the keeping of Shavuot as the day approaches. At any rate, there are no mandated feasts in this second month of Yah's biblical calendar year. Instead, as I just alluded to, we prepare ourselves for the coming day of Shavuot. Amen. So, what are we going to discuss today, beloved? Well, I've been led to forego discussion of the Torah reading for this Shabbat, which is Torah Reading 133 of the 3-year Torah reading calendar that we've been following over the last 3 years, of which Torah Reading 133 I would encourage you to study on your own accord as Abba Yah so leads. And it is found this Shabbat in Deuteronomy chapter 9, verses 1 through 29, Jeremiah chapter 2, verses 1 through 13, and James, for the apostolic reading, James chapter 4, verses 1 through 10. And I pray that your fervent studies of this reading will bless you. But instead of discussing this week's Shabbat reading, I think it is high time that I address the proverbial elephant in the room. And sadly, that elephant in the room has to do with where I stand as it relates to Israel and this Gaza, Hamas, Hezbollah war or conflict. Now, I've not been sitting off to the side consternating about where I stand on this crucial situation amid all the insane hoopla that we are witnessing that is going on throughout the world over the last month. That is the pro-Hamas, the pro-Palestinian protest, and so forth. Indeed, it has bothered me. And I have been in constant prayer for our Jewish brothers and sisters and for the nation state of Israel. And I believe what we've been witnessing going on throughout the world of late in opposition to Israel and in opposition to Jews around the world, but instead in support of terrorist groups and their activities is nothing less than demonic in nature. Demonic in nature. Demonic influence is the only thing that comes to my mind that would adequately explain the foolishness we've seen played out before our eyes virtually every day on college campuses, university campuses, city streets, and on various social media platforms. It's all abhorrent, to say the least. And it has nothing to do with free speech or standing up to a contrived accusation against Israel that she is committing some kind of genocide against the Palestinian or Palestinian people. Because such foolishness or such foolish demonstrations and remonstrations are nothing short of pure, unadulterated lies that the enemy is expertly orchestrating to cover over and hide the real atrocities that are playing out in this tragic situation. Now, the reason I've waited till now to voice my opinions or my positions on the Israel-Hamas war and all the ancillary issues that are connected to it is that I was not sure how best to articulate my position. Just this past week, I was meditating on this situation, and it came to me that instead of stating my position on the subject and leaving it at that I break down my position on the issue into bite-sized points and briefly discuss each of those points. And I came up with several points that I felt best supported my position on this issue, but I had to cull down those points to just 7 for the sake of simplicity and time. So I've entitled this discussion today, 7 Reasons This Messianic Stands with Israel. 7 reasons this Messianic stands with Israel. Because this discussion complements the last series we published, that being Israel's Inextricable Link to Our Salvation, which is not finished yet, not completed, I've included this post into that series. So this post will be the 5th installment of our Israel's Inextricable Link to Our Salvation. And if you've not had the opportunity to either read or listen to any of the 4 installments on this or in this series, I humbly encourage you to do so as you are so led. And I'll put the links to the previous 4 installments in this post transcript for your convenience. As I continue with this discussion and enumerate each of the 7 reasons, please understand that I do not present them, these 7 reasons, in any order. Second, I want to make it clear that I make no apologies for my position on this subject. That which is at stake here, I believe, is nothing short of our salvation and our redemption. And I do not say such a thing to garner such or any kind of level of shock value for this post or to be unnecessarily dramatic. I mean what I'm saying here. With all that is going on out there these days, beloved, especially in terms of the Israel-Hamas situation, the ongoing woke agenda, the physical attacks on people of faith and their congregations, the fear-mongering that the globalists are employing in the world today for purposes of controlling the citizens of this world, and so forth and so forth. Well, we find ourselves, I believe, at a crossroads. And we must take a stand as it relates to which side of the spiritual equation we're on in relation to such critical social, religious situations. For the people of faith, that is, those who claim to worship and trust in the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob, this is a time of sifting, of culling, of separation and separating. You see, Master Yeshua informed Simon Peter that the enemy sought to sift him as if he were wheat. Luke chapter 22, verse 31. Sift in the Greek is synazo, which means to winnow. Now, winnowing is the physical act of separating out chaff from wheat during a harvest. Jacob 10th overseer and Messianic Torah observer Bill Cloud described the October 7, 2023 attack against the nation state of Israel by the terrorist group Hamas and many of her so-called Palestinian proxies as the beginning of a new season, the beginning of a dispensation. And indeed it was. Because for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, What was unleashed on October 7th last year was a display of utter evil that has since driven people of this world to take a side. And so all the people in the world, out of every nation, tongue, and color of their skin, are being compelled to choose a side. And that side that they're supposed to take, the two sides that are being offered, is you're either supporting the God of Israel or you're aligning with Islam's Allah, also known as Hasatan, who is the head of the kingdom of darkness. The average person does not realize this reality. They really don't. And many of those that have been out there protesting and creating chaos throughout their various communities in the name of a terrorist group and in the name of a nation people that really doesn't exist, because the Palestinians is not a nation. It's not a state. But they're creating this chaos and this protest for these terrorists and this group of people, and their ideology. And they are unwittingly writing checks that their behinds cannot cash. In these perilous times, virtually everything that we have in the West that we thought was stable and solid is being shaken. And shaken in the Greek is saluo. Saluo. Paul warned his Thessalonian readers, I should say, that they not be shaken in mind, or or troubled in spirit, or by word, or by letter that is alleged to have been written by him regarding the arrival of the day of the Lord. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 2. For everything that is being shaken around us today may give us cause to worry and fret. But we are ill-advised as the Master's chosen ones to not let our hearts be concerned. Yah has everything under control. And everything that we see being shaken about us must take place. And these shaking events are an unfortunate means to a glorious end. Now, the benefit of these shakings, or in particular this shaking with the Israel-Hamas situation that we see transpiring round about us, is that it sifts. It serves to sift and separate out those that belong to Yehovah and those that do not belong to Yehovah. Master Yeshua prophesied about the nations being gathered before him, and he separating out the sheep from the goats in the coming kingdom age. And he said that, and it's recorded in Matthew chapter 25, verse 32. Could what we see happening round about us today be an initial iteration of that separating out and that culling of those that belong to him, Yeshua, from those that do not belong to him? I believe Yah is indeed preparing a set-apart people through this and future tragic events. And it behooves the Notzrim of Yeshua Messiah to be informed of what's going on and what he expects of his elect. Yah told the prophet that despite all that is going on around them, he and the remnant of Israel, that the holy and just remnant live by their faith. Just live by your faith. That's all you got to do. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4. Literally, we Notzrim are to gird our loins and keep the faith with all that is in us and make ourselves available to him when he calls. That's our responsibility. The multitudinous situations that are hitting us from every side these days are forcing us to either stand on the side of God and his Malkut Elohim, his kingdom, or on the side of the enemy and his kingdom of darkness. And I firmly believe, beloved, that the onslaught of these multitudinous situations coming at us from all directions is only going to get worse as we go headlong towards the great tribulation. And let us not allow ourselves to be deceived. All the foolishness we see taking place round about us, especially the foolishness regarding Israel and Hamas, the anti-Israel sentiments that are being expressed round the globe, is indeed not just an assault against God's chosen people, B'nai Israel, the sons of Israel, the children of Israel, regardless what your personal opinions of Jews are, of what your personal opinions of the nation state of Israel are, but more so what we're seeing is an assault against Yehovah. And the people who are perpetrating these assaults for the sake of terrorist organizations such as Hamas and Hezbollah are ignorantly writing checks that their behinds cannot cash, as I stated earlier, and I kid you not on this. And I could go on and on as it relates to some of the background stuff associated with the whole Israel situation, but I'll save the rest of that stuff for another day. So what do you say we get into the 7 reasons that I stand with Israel? And as I stated, I have 7 reasons. The first is the realities of the Abrahamic covenant support the reasons why I stand with Israel. The second reason is Hamas embodies pure evil and it must be defeated at all cost. The third reason I stand with Israel is that standing with B'nai Israel, the children of Israel, is the right thing to do. The fourth reason I stand with Israel is that Israel stands as the stopgap for future potential terrorist attacks in the West. The fifth reason I stand with Israel is that our salvation is inextricably linked to Israel. The sixth reason that I stand with Israel is that Israel has every right to defend herself against the kingdom of darkness. And lastly, the seventh reason I stand with Israel is that true biblical messianics are supposed to be biblical Zionists. Okay, now let me just go and explain each of these 7 reasons so that I'm clear as to why I stand with Israel. The first reason, again, is that the realities of the Abrahamic covenant demand that we stand with Israel. Paul affirmed to the Messianic assemblies in Rome that the covenant promises of Yah are irrevocable. Romans chapter 11, verse 29, which means that Israel's claim and rights to the land of promise, Haaretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, has and will remain valid to the end of time. Jeremiah chapter 7 and verse 7 reads, "Then will I cause you to dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever." And forever is a long time. Jeremiah 25. And the 25th verse reads, "Turn ye again now everyone from his evil way, and from the evil of your doings, and dwell in the land that the Lord, Yehovah, hath given unto you and to your fathers forever and ever." There's that ever and ever thing again. Ezekiel 37, verse 25. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob, my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. And they shall dwell therein, even they and their children, and their children's children, for how long? Forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. And that iteration of the servant David is none other than our Messiah, Yeshua Messiah. They don't know him now. They haven't accepted Yeshua as their Messiah, but they will. They are destined to. Yah has not given permission to Israel, or for that matter, anyone else, to give the land, Haaretz Israel, to any other people and nation. When the nations push so hard for their supposed two-state solution, which they've been doing like they're drunk on that two-state solution Kool-Aid, well, when they're pushing so hard on this, they are meddling in Yah's business, and that is no bueno. It's not a good deal for them. We must, for once, be on the right side of human history, on the right side of God's history for mankind, and to be on the right side of this thing according to Yehovah, because it doesn't matter what I think, but what Yehovah thinks is the most important thing. But to be on the right side of this thing according to Yah will bring about blessings. When we stand with Israel, especially today, with all that's going on and how the world is coming against Israel, when we stand on that side of her, we will incur for ourselves blessings. The nations that stand with Israel will incur upon themselves blessings. Consequently, to be on the wrong side of this thing, to be against Israel, is to incur curses upon one's self. Genesis chapter 12. And verse 1 reads, And Yehovah said to Avram, Go yourself out of your land, from your relatives and from your father's house, and to a land which I show you. Verse 2. And I shall make you a great nation, and bless you, and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Verse 3. And I shall bless those that bless you, and curse him who curses you. And in you all the clans of the earth shall be blessed. That's Genesis 12, verses 1 through 3. The Scripture's ISR translation. So that's the background to my first reason for standing with Israel. The second reason is that Hamas embodies pure evil, and it must be defeated. Let's be clear who and what Israel is. In Arabic, Hamas means strength, zeal, and boldness. In Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 16, Hamas takes the form of a violent and false witness. Then, in Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 16, Hamas is a character trait of the king of Tyre. And the king of Tyre is a form of Lucifer. In Psalm chapter 74, verses 19 and 20, Hamas describes a dark, secret, hollow hiding place, such as one finds with tunnels. And tunnels have certainly become synonymous with the terror group Hamas of late, have they not? In Joel 3:19, Obadiah chapter 1, verse 10, Ezekiel 35, verses 5 through 11, and Ezekiel 35, verse 5, Hamas is synonymous with Edom. And Edom involves the descendants, or consists of the descendants of Esau. And Esau has always been Israel's avowed enemy who seeks Israel's destruction, I should say, not discussion, but destruction. They've always sought after Israel's destruction. And the mindset of Edom is to take what belongs to Yehovah. However, Abba Yah has promised that Edom, in all of her iterations throughout Israel's history, will be made desolate. So corrupt and violent behavior is behind the mindset of the name Hamas. Genesis chapter 6, verse 11, the earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence, filled with Hamas. Hamas is and has always resisted Yah's purpose. Hamas is a representation of the Palestinian people. And interestingly, the terrorist group Hamas elected to embed themselves among the so-called Palestinian people living in Gaza. Now, Gaza in the Hebrew is Azah. And according to Messianic Torah teacher Bill Cloud, Azah means a strong fortification or stronghold, a foothold. And we know from Scripture that in order for Yah's way to succeed, strongholds must be overcome. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. Yah deeded the land of Israel, including Gaza, to Abraham and his seed. The land is Israel's inheritance. However, there is a stronghold in place that seeks to deny Israel her inheritance, and that stronghold is Gaza. Gaza is a border city between Egypt and Israel. It was from the beginning a part of the land of promise, but Judah never completely tamed it. Originally, the Philistines invaded the region and became a thorn in Israel's side. Contrary to historic reality, the Philistines were not indigenous to Gaza. The Philistines were Greek immigrants that settled in and controlled Gaza. And throughout her history, her ancient history, Gazans have antagonized Israel, especially when Israel would veer away from Yah and his ways. Yah often used Gaza to correct Israel. And it is accurate to view the citizens of Gaza as tares to Israel. And by the way, the so-called Palestinian people who are antagonizing Israel today, they're not Philistines. The Philistines were eradicated, for the most part, under King David's rule. Israel has, over the last 2 decades, though, been under extreme international pressure to withdraw from Gaza, which to a lesser or greater extent she did. This action by Israel has led to Hamas taking control of Gaza. And Hamas has up to this point antagonized Israel with much violence, despite the world ignoring this reality. Mashiach, Messiah, will conquer and tame Gaza once and for all. But we must endure the birth pangs leading up to that conquering, that conquest, that pacification. But Yah will take just vengeance against Gaza. Yah will return Israel's captives to the land. Jeremiah 25, Zephaniah chapter 2, and Zechariah chapter 9. The extreme brutality of the October 7, 2023 attacks by Hamas and certain Palestinians or Palestinian participants clearly reveals their evil spiritual makeup. Yet the liar-in-chief successfully sways the world on this critical issue. So I ask you, who is the true target of genocide in this war? And this is an age-old problem that few folks in the world will consider. The two-front lie has given the world the excuse to stand not just against Israel, but more so against the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For one, the Palestinians are indeed a legitimate competing nation state within the state of Israel. Lie number one. Lie number two, that Israeli government is occupying Gaza and committing genocide of the so-called Palestinian people. And we know that is to be a lie and not to believe. And yet the world is running headlong to embrace these lies. But we, who are the redeemed of Yah, who have eyes to see and ears to hear, we are people of the Bible, and we love our brethren, the Israelis and our Jewish brothers and sisters. We know the truth. Let's look at reason number 3. And that reason is standing with Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, is the right thing to do. You know, whenever a majority crowd races to shed innocent blood, such as with the world at large today, Scripture warns us of God's displeasure in such a thing. The prophet described the corruption of Judah in the days preceding her captivity in a manner that aptly fits many of the pro-Hamas and pro-Palestinian supporters of today. Isaiah chapter 59. And verse 7 reads, "Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their paths." Now, much of why the world has been so quick to call for the wholesale extermination of Israel and the Jews of the world has little to do with the nation-state Israel's response to the October 7th atrocities. But learned and instilled anti-Semitism is behind this. What is true biblical anti-Semitism anyway? We see the term being thrown around today to describe all hostility to or prejudice against Jewish people, according to the Oxford Online Dictionary. Sadly, political Zionists and not too few Western politicians have fallen into the trap of calling any criticism and calling out of any of the nation state of Israel and Jews worldwide for their sins and improper behavior as anti-Semitic. But Scripture undeniably speaks out against the sins and shortcomings of our Jewish brethren and even the present-day sins of the Jewish state of Israel, as it does the non-Jewish people of the world that are equally sinful, equally faulty. But to exempt the nation state of Israel and the Jews of the world from any criticism whatsoever, especially when they are not behaving themselves, is an attempt by our Jewish brothers to cover over and hide their dirty spiritual and carnal laundry. And to call anyone who speaks out against the evil and sins of our Jewish brethren an anti-Semite just because it's the thing to do today misses the definition of true biblical anti-Semitism. And I believe that this is a topic that every Messianic believer must delve into so that they are clear about how Yah, Abba Yah, defines anti-Semitism. You see, biblical anti-Semitism defines a mindset that is diametrically opposed to the things and ways of the God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And unlike the secular definition of anti-Semitism, true anti-Semitism is not about the color of one's skin, such as the color of our Jewish brethren's skin, or their culture, or their heritage. It has nothing to do with that. Unfortunately, the political Zionist and the secular pro-Israeli lobbies throughout the world, much of this having to do with their spiritually fallen state, well, they have ignored God's definition of anti-Semitism. Indeed, what we see Hamas and its proxies throughout the world doing in their efforts to destroy Israel is true biblical anti-Semitism. They have a mindset, an evil mindset, set on the destruction of Israel and of every Jew in the world. These individuals who possess biblical anti-Semitism, these stand diametrically opposed to the God of Israel and his chosen ones. Number 4 reason. Israel stands as the stopgap for potential terrorist attacks in the West. Let us be clear about the true but hidden force and agenda of the pro-Hamas Hezbollah movement taking center stage in the world today. Hamas is simply a useful tool that Islam, especially radical Islam, is using today to make gains towards their stated goal of ushering in their version of the New World Order. And Israel's version of the New World Order is what they refer to as the Caliphate, the Islamic Caliphate. Encyclopedia Britannica defines the Islamic Caliphate as, quote, the political religious state comprising the Muslim community and the lands and peoples under its dominion, end quote. Causes and consequences of the Caliphate. Britannica Encyclopedia. In other words, beloved, the goal of the radical Islamist is to convert the world to Islam by force, and then to rule the world through Sharia law. And how will they accomplish this? They are accomplishing portions of their goal even today through what? Massive immigration and takeover. Immigration of Muslims into the Western and Eastern nations. They use terrorism and other forms of violence to intimidate and force the non-Muslim nations to comply with their way of life. Israel, as she fights for her very existence over in Gaza and in the northernmost sectors of her territory, is effectively confining the militant terroristic arm of radical Islam to primarily their region of the world, which is a good thing, as selfish as that may sound. But if Israel wasn't doing what they're doing in their fight against Hamas and Hezbollah now, make no mistake, beloved, they would systematically, Hamas would systematically overrun the Jewish state and then set their eyes upon the so-called Christian nations of the world. It is within the charter of Hamas and Hezbollah and all their fellow terrorist groups, which is based upon their understanding of the Hadith. The Hadith, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. And the Hadith is the supposed sayings and teachings of Muhammad. It is their understanding of that document that they will, quote, first destroy the Saturday people and then the Sunday people, end quote. And if that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what will. I have the link to that article in the show's transcript for your convenience. Number five reason that I stand with Israel is that our salvation is inextricably linked to Israel. Our engrafted status, as spoken of by Paul in Romans chapter 11, verses 17 through 24, into the commonwealth of Israel, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 12, and Philippians chapter 3, verse 20, must also temper our love and support of Israel. The KJV term commonwealth that applies to Israel by the apostle in the Greek is politia. Politia, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 12. In Philippians chapter 3, verse 20, the apostle uses the term polituma. Polituma is where we get the term politics. But polituma is used to describe being part of the heavenly community by Paul in Philippians chapter 3, verse 20. But getting back to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 12, politia carries the sense of Gentiles through the qualifying work of Yeshua Messiah. Gentiles becoming members or citizens of Israel. Some who are more in tune with Messianic Judaism would insist this has to do with Gentiles becoming citizens of the Jewish nation. Not in a political or secular sense, as if one were to become a naturalized citizen of the United States, but more in a covenant relationship sense. Consequently, there are rights and duties that are associated with being of the Commonwealth of Israel. In his dissertation on the Commonwealth of Israel in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 12, as far as the one true faith is concerned, Paul takes full ownership of his Israeli heritage and citizenship. He expresses a brokenness of the heart over the realities of the majority rejection of his kinsmen of Yeshua as their Messiah. And he desperately yearns for his kinsmen's salvation, yet he takes comfort in the prophecies that assure the salvation of all Israel. For the apostle realized that within her heritage and her reaching covenant promises, Israel sat on top of the divine goal of the reconciliation of humanity with its creator. She is at the forefront of that future promise. And this is made possible through none other than the person and ministry of Israel's Messiah, Yeshua. And all that has been promised and made spiritually accessible to Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, is irrevocable, as I stated earlier, and as Paul wrote in Romans chapter 11, verse 29. She remains beloved of Yah despite worldwide beliefs and claims to the contrary. Commonwealth, as stated in Ephesians, also insinuates that there is a politically organized body under a single government. The politically organized body and government is theocratic in nature. It's a government ruled by Yehovah, with the heavily implied reality of the kingdom and reign of Yeshua HaMashiach over the polity of Israel, true Israel, remnant Israel. Paul wanted the Ephesian non-Jewish messianics to recognize what they possess as redeemed of Yeshua Messiah. They were once aliens in relation to the covenant promises and the kingdom of Israel. But when these, and by extension when we came to faith through Yeshua, Yeshua granted us citizenship in the kingdom of Israel, aka the Commonwealth of Israel. Their citizenship, our citizenship, in no way displaces our Jewish brethren, as so many in denominationalism believe. That is a replacement theology error. But theirs is a sharing into. We have a sharing into of all the rights and privileges that are associated with being a citizen of true or remnant Israel and of heaven. And the ideological concept of an engrafting of the non-Jewish messianic into the Commonwealth of Israel conjures up an image of Gentiles being likened unto a wild olive branch being engrafted onto an olive tree. And that olive tree is none other than Israel. That engrafted olive branch that was once wild and now is attached to the cultivated olive tree, then becomes nourished by the rich nutrients, that is, the rights and privileges of the covenant promises of Israel. And those rich nutrients are derived from the love Yah has for his set-apart people and the promises incurred to her therein. Yehovah then has but one beloved and one covenanted people. And those beloved and covenanted people are none other than Yisrael. The Gentile is then compelled to endeavor to be adopted into the family of Yah through the person and ministry of Yeshua and made a partaker, citizen of true remnant Israel. We're focusing more on the Gentile Messianic's access to the covenant promises Yah made to Israel's patriarchs. Again, not that the Gentile Messianic becomes a naturalized citizen of empirical or nationalistic Israel or the state of Israel as the world knows Israel, under the paradigm of the commonwealth of Israel that Paul spotlights in his writings to Ephesus. The believing and even non-believing Jew keeps their Hebraic, their Jewish heritage intact with all the rights and privileges contained therein, because their acceptance or their rejection of Yeshua as their Messiah does not change or nullify this reality. As we talked about, their heritage, the covenant promises as applied to Israel, is forever. I realize that Israel's present state of mind is one of non-belief and apostasy, but we know from prophecy that Yah himself is going to fix that. Romans chapter 11, verse 26, where Paul wrote that all Israel will be saved, as it is written, the deliverer shall come out of Zion, and he shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. So how can we stand with Israel, giving her inextricable link to our salvation? That link rests on the fact that among all the nation peoples of the world, Yehovah established his marriage covenant with just one nation people, and that nation people is Israel. Yehovah, through his right arm Yeshua Messiah and his grand plan of salvation, redemption, and restoration, has engrafted you and I into the blessed commonwealth of his chosen ones, Yisrael. And at the end of the day, beloved, we're talking about this being about a covenant, a people, and a land. Let's go into reason number 6 of why I stand with Israel. Israel has every right to defend herself. The supporters and proxies of the kingdom of darkness have falsely accused Israel of the genocide of the so-called Palestinian people. Genocide, the deliberate and systematic destruction of a group of people because of their ethnicity, nationality, race, or religion, according to the definition given of genocide in the Encyclopedia Britannica. After the Twin Towers were toppled by so-called Islamic terrorists, according to the official narrative, back in 2001, the United States declared war against both whom? Afghanistan and Iraq. Well, very few souls throughout the world stood in opposition to the United States' right to defend herself, did they? No, they did not. But according to Wikipedia, Wikipedia, I know. Well, according to that Wikipedia, some 176,000 Afghanis and 150,000 Iraqis perished at the hands of U.S. and coalition forces. Again, few question the legitimacy of America's so-called war against terror, why then are people having such an uproar over Israel responding to the October 7, 2023 attacks by Hamas? However, after terrorists invaded sovereign Israeli territory and murdered some 1,200 Israeli citizens and kidnapped roughly 150 Israelis and other nationals, most of which we now know have been killed by their captors, many around the world staunchly contend that Israel does not have the right to defend herself, nor may she eliminate the existential threat to her existence that is Hamas and her evil partners and proxies. Now, since Israel began her assault against her enemy Hamas, the enemy has successfully planted seeds of doubt in the minds of many throughout the world. At the start of this thing, when news of the atrocities that were wrought against the citizens and visitors of Israel emerged, the world at large supported Israel's right to defend herself. But within a short few days after Israel began her offensive against Hamas in Gaza, erroneous claims that Israel was committing genocide against the Palestinian people took up residence in the hearts and minds of uninformed people around the world. But truth be told, Israel is not, nor has she ever, engaged in genocide against the so-called Palestinian people. Recall that the definition of genocide is the deliberate and systematic destruction of a group of people because of their ethnicity, nationality, religion, or race. Yes, innocent Gazans have perished because of Israel's assault against Hamas terrorists. However, as terrible and regrettable as the loss of innocent life is, war will always result in the deaths of innocent souls who have nothing directly to do with either of the two sides that are waging war one against the other. And Israel has, in fact, gone out of her way to preserve life by urging the innocent Gazan citizens to evacuate the war zones before the Israeli forces come in. Not to mention, Israeli forces have provided vital aid to the Gazan citizens in the form of food and medical attention that the world has turned a blind eye to. Of the 35,000 reported deaths, according to the UN, roughly half are innocents, with the other half being terrorist combatants. So a genocide on Israel's part, by its very definition, would have certainly resulted in the systematic murders of untold tens of thousands more innocents. But the world is not interested in truth and reason, are they? And the world is not interested in truth and reason because the enemy seeks to destroy and stymie the works of the kingdom of God and to turn the hearts and minds of world's people against their creator and his people. The world is outraged by the deaths of innocent souls, and I get that, especially in this ongoing Israeli-Hamas conflict, and they seek as a remedy the genocide of Jews, not just in the nation state of Israel, but throughout the world. But isn't this what the enemy has sought to do from the very beginning, destroy Israel? Everyone is in an uproar over a fabricated genocide of so-called Palestinians, but what about ongoing genocides throughout the world? Where's the outrage in that? What are some of the ongoing genocides of the world today? The Rohingya of Burma, the Tigray peoples of Ethiopia, the systematic extermination of some 300,000 plus and displacement of 2.6 million non-Arab and southern Sudanese civilians. Syrians, we have no idea. There's just too many. And the mass extermination of the Uyghurs by China, and the numbers of which we'll never know because it's China. The ongoing ire that is being placed at the feet of the Jewish people is nothing less than a spiritually driven hatred of God and those that are his by the useful idiots of the world that have made themselves accessible to do the bidding of the kingdom of darkness. And lastly, the seventh reason why I stand with Israel is that true biblical messianics are supposed to be biblical Zionists. Isaiah chapter 60, verses 1 through 3 reads, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of Yehovah has risen on you." Verse 2, "For look, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the peoples. But Yehovah will rise on you, and his glory will appear over you. 3, the nations shall come to your light, and the kings to the bright light of your sunrise." With all the ongoing uproar over Israel's fight against the terror group Hamas, 2 words have been seared onto the conscience of peoples, be they of faith or not, throughout the world. And one of those words is genocide, as we just mentioned, which we discussed previously. And the second is Zionism. Interestingly, although these are 2 words with very different meanings, the Israeli-Hamas conflict with all of its attachments has at times conflated the two. What do I mean by this? Well, the supporters of Hamas and Hezbollah are forcing down the throats of the people of the world the lie that Zionist Jews are perpetrating a genocide against the so-called Palestinian peoples, of which some leaders of the world, the Western world in particular, in order to promote the terrorist evil agenda. well, have declared to be an official nation state whose capital is none other than Jerusalem. Yes, Palestine is now being considered as a state by some of the Western nation leaders, and this is an outrageous situation. And we should know there are two forms of Zionism: biblical Zionism and political Zionism. Now, biblical Zionism is the restoration of the kingdom of Israel. It is a concept and a reality that must be embraced, anticipated, and walked out to a lesser and greater extent by every Notzarene. Political Zionism, on the other hand, is defined by the Encyclopedia Britannica as a Jewish nationalistic movement that has had as its goal the creation and support of a Jewish national state in Palestine. Or let's just say Israel proper, the ancient homeland of the Jews. Though Zionism originated in Eastern and Central Europe, according to the article, in the latter part of the 19th century, it is in many ways a continuation of the ancient attachment of the Jews and of the Jewish religion to the historical region of Palestine, where one of the hills of the ancient Jerusalem was called Zion, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, biblical Zionism, however, stands in both agreement and many times opposition to political Zionism. Political Zionism. The prime difference between the two Zionisms, let's say, is the political element that endeavors to maintain and promote the goals and agenda of the nation state of Israel. God has very little to no place in the political Zionist purpose, agenda, and goals, which means that the political Zionist leaders and government apparatus often involve themselves in activities that are, let's just say, ungodly, to say the least. However, in Yah's infinite wisdom, he obviously used the zeal of the political Zionist to reestablish the nation state of Israel and initiated the return of his chosen people to Haaretz Yisrael. And it is this reality that stands in opposition to the goals and purposes of the darkness, the kingdom of darkness. For we live in a time when Zion's king is returning and the world is outraged by this. Yah, however, has already determined that his king, Yeshua, will rule. Israel, the land and its people, are uber important to Yehovah. And whatever is important to Yehovah, our Elohim must be equally important to his elect ones. Abba Yah described Haaretz Israel in Deuteronomy chapter 11 as follows. Verse 10, "For the land which you are going in to possess is not like the land of Mitzrayim from which you have come, where you sowed your seed and watered it by foot, as a vegetable garden." Verse 11, "But the land which you are passing over to possess is a land of hills and valleys, which drinks water from the rain of the heavens." Verse 12, "And a land which Yehovah, your Elohim, looks after." The eyes of Yehovah, your Elohim, are always on it from the beginning of the year to the latter end of the year. And that was the scripture's ISR rendering. In closing, beloved, I've given you just 6 reasons I stand with Israel. There are indeed others that I won't go into. These are my reasons, and they may or may not be the same reasons others who share my convictions have towards Israel. But I hold the belief that these convictions are biblically substantiated and they make spiritual sense. Now is the time for every true Nazarene Israelite to stand firm in their convictions towards the nation state of Israel and our Jewish brethren. Those of our faith who, because of some hang-ups they possess regarding the nation state of Israel or our Jewish brothers and sisters, must consider what side of their spiritual bread is buttered. They must cease denying the realities of Scripture and resisting the purpose and plans of the Almighty. Neither the nation state of Israel nor our Jewish brothers and sisters around the world are perfect. They are indeed a flawed people on many levels, but truth be told, so are we. We lack in so many ways, just like them, despite the fact that we have been saved by grace through our trusting faith in Yeshua Messiah. So let us stand with Israel and with our Jewish brothers and sisters, and let us not be burdened by all of the foolishness that the world is engaging as it relates to Israel's war against Hamas, but rather as our master instructed his inner circle of sent ones. And when these matters begin to take place, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. Luke chapter 21, verse 28. Shabbat shalom, Shavua tov. And until next time, beloved, may you be most blessed, fellow saints in training. Take care.